Hi, everybody. We are so glad to have you back with us on the Home Ed 360 podcast. I hope you've enjoyed the conversations that we've had so far on the podcast. It's been an amazing opportunity to connect with all of you, and we couldn't do it without this Home Ed 360 community. So thanks for tuning in and joining us on this podcast. This podcast is of stories, resources, and tips for implementing a home education lifestyle, and it's provided by Home Ed 360, a program that connects, inspires, and supports families on their home education journey. I'm your host, Rebekah Wood, a teacher from Home Ed 360, tuning in from Idaho Falls, Idaho. And today on the show, we have our amazing guest, Lisa.huettl. Lisa is a Home Ed 360 teacher, and she has a very masterful background in education and home education. So we're super excited to have her on with us today. Lisa has 34 years of personal and professional experience, having educated her own and other students in a variety of educational environments and grades, including all grades from kindergarten through 12th grade, as an instructor for education courses, as a presenter for state, district, county, school, and community workshops. With her children, she successfully educated her twice exceptional learners in 4 different states before issuing high school transcripts based on portfolios for high school coursework, grades from courses taught outside the home, ACT scores and certificates for college credit by exam, and reports for dual enrolled courses. Lisa completed her undergrad in psychology with an emphasis in cognitive science, continued with postgraduate work in education, then pursued certification, as a literacy interventionist specialist, gifted and talented instructor, and attended the University of California Summer Math Institute, where she achieved recognition as a CA Math Fellow. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Rebekah. I love that I get to talk about my biggest fear and my greatest accomplishment in my professional life.
Yeah, absolutely. We're just grateful you took the time out of your busy schedule. I know you're helping and serving so many people, so I'm grateful that you took the time to be on the podcast. Today, we're going to be addressing common concerns when it comes to math, how to address and overcome these concerns, how to make real life and cross-curricular connections with math, and other advice that Lisa is willing to offer us today. So, Lisa, if you wouldn't mind, we'd love you to kind of introduce yourself, tell us about yourself, and tell us about more about you and your family.
Okay, perfect. Well, again, my name's Lisa.huettl. I'm kind of a spaz, and I'm passionate about anything that I'm doing. If it's not worth my passion, then I'm not invested, I don't do it. And so education is right up at the top, but included with those passions are my family. I've been married to my husband for 29 years, and I've known him for, oh gosh, probably about 39 years, I'm believing. Yeah, it's been a while. We were friends for a while before we dated. So we
Awesome.
have 2 boys who live in our home. They're adults by age. One attends Northwest Nazarene University, and he is working to become a physical therapist. He's in the pre-PT program, finishing up, I hope, at some point soon. And my other son just started his freshman year at BSU with just 25 units left for him to have his Bachelor of Science in Psychology. And he has to continue there to get the mandatory number of units. So he's continuing because his ultimate goal is to have a career as a market analyst. And then just to round out and make things more spicy, hopefully you don't hear them in the background, but I have 2 silly little naughty rescued dogs, and they are the most needy, anxious, crazy love bugs you could imagine.
It's fun hearing them. Sometimes when we're on meetings, we get to hear the pups in the
Yes,
background. It's fun. And you're located in the Treasure Valley, is that correct?
I am in the Treasure Valley. Yes,
Awesome. And just a little bit more about your background. So you've taught in brick and mortar school, is that correct?
I have. I started in a brick and mortar school. I taught there. Well, while I taught there, I never repeated a grade. I was that floater teacher where the administrator would say, I need somebody to do the combo class this year, or I hopped around the entire time I was there. So I was always fresh. It worked really great for my personality that didn't know how to organize at that younger age. And I just pretended that I was creating new things when in reality it was saving me from, I can't find the file I need. So, yes, I've taught in a brick and mortar, and then my own children attended a brick and mortar school to begin with. And then when that, after lots of work and energy was not showing to be a good fit, we went to a virtual charter program that was all online and selected materials. And that was my transition out of the public school setting. I never, ever thought I would be a homeschool parent. Um, and then from there, and that seems silly with the experience I had teaching, but I gained experience after the fact and felt more confident and then went rogue homeschooling with no support, no oversight, or anything in another state. My kids have had co-op experiences, they've had private hybrid program experiences. I mean, any kind of educational experience you can imagine, I've either led, done professionally, or have had my children participate in. And I have no bias towards any of them. Everybody gets to choose what works for their family, and every child's unique. What works for one of mine did not work for the other. So flexibility and respect for everybody is kind of where I am when I view education.
I love that. I think a lot of people can relate with that. Like a lot of people don't, are like don't even have home education maybe on their radar until something
Mhm.
happens and then it's like, okay, maybe we are going to delve into this world. Um and so did you when you did online programs after that, did you continue teaching or did you take a break and then start teaching again or what was the road like for
It
that?
was a very slow evolution. When I had my first son, I went down to a 20% contract. I was very fortunate to be in a district that allowed that option if approved. So somebody who taught very differently than me, and I used to we would have really rich discussions about educational philosophy. We ended up teaming together. So she taught Monday through Thursday, and then I came in on Fridays and continued the program. We partnered beautifully together. So I worked at a 20% contract for 6, 7 years. And in the interim, I was offered the opportunity to work with a pre-service teaching program. It was a coordination between two local universities and the community college district. And so the courses were, it was reciprocal. So I taught Education 200 there and I let go of my 20%. So that was beautiful because I got to brainwash all the brand new teachers coming out. And I loved it. It was like, okay, here's my chance. I can teach them what it looks like to do it the right way and make parents matter. So
I wish I would have had you my first year teaching in brick and mortar school. I would have loved you as a mentor.
oh my goodness, it was a lot of fun. So I did that and then my son entered kindergarten. I continued it, but then I ended up being basically an unpaid full-time teacher, volunteer, where I was in, well, the last year we participated was a combo class for my son. And the teacher was very seasoned but had never done a combo. So I just said, I'll come in every day. I will plan it, teach it, prep it, grade it, and do everything you need. And I'll do your social studies and your science curriculum. And I loved it.
I can't believe
Absolutely
you
loved
did
it.
that well, I can believe you did that
It
because you
was
have
my
such a big.
child. It's why we do what we do at Home Ed 360. When it's your child, you are going to make sure they have the best experience that you are capable of providing. And if that meant I had no life,
Yeah.
that's what it meant because they were my kiddos and I was invested and I was engaged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where was this? Because I know you've moved around a lot. This wasn't always in Idaho. Where did you start teaching and continue teaching?
I started with a school district in California known as Irvine Unified School District, and it is nationally recognized. People move to the area for the school district. However, my particular school was not the typical school in Irvine. It served Tustin Marine Air Force Base as well as the overrun from El Toro base. And we also had overrun from Camp Pendleton down in the San Diego area. And they were not the officers' children. So we had a lot of people, very diverse culture, a lot of people that were below the poverty level economically. So that was about a third of our population, and they rotated. We had about a 30% transition rate annually. So we had that, and then the other third was HUD housing, because that's something the community did, is planned. Every community had HUD housing, and then we had the nanny syndrome culture, where they were affluent and but not necessarily engaged because they were, I say that my mom did this, off playing tennis all day. um,
Is this the
so I
same
don't
school
mean
that
that.
you did your 20% contract at?
I did
So,
full time and I did 20%. And then our school closed when the military bases closed, and we were transferred to a typical school for the area, which was a totally children of professional athletes. And it was just a totally different lifestyle. And I was 20% at that point.
okay. And
Yeah.
then what about when your boys started to enter school? Was it into that school or was this a different?
I had wanted it to be in that school originally. The culture of education changed dramatically between the time I got pregnant and the time my children were school age. And the trends that were happening in the classroom were not ones that I could keep my integrity in place and support. So it was beautiful that I had the opportunity to work at the college because I could continue, like I said, brainwashing people. Don't listen to what's going on right now. It's a trend, it's a phase, it'll stop. So I did not take them to the school where I taught. I had resigned by that point and retired, with the exception of working at the university and volunteering.
I'm glad that you
So
came out of retirement because
I came out of retirement because of Janet's vision,
wow.
truly.
So, okay, so let's go from, so you pulled your boys out of the
Mm.
school, and what did that look like those first years of pulling them out and then educating with online resources and at home?
I used a very well respected, rigorous virtual program that is recognized internationally. And they provided all the curriculum, more than you would ever want or need. And because it was new in the state, the regulation wasn't as tight. You know how that goes. You have underperforming students on state tests, and it clamps down, clamps down, clamps down. And which drove me, I'm not anti-testing, but I think there needs to be an understanding that programs that aren't traditional often attract families that aren't having needs met in a traditional format, which means we're just shifting who's doing well to another place. And anyway, we had a significant population of students that wouldn't have performed well in any environment. So they needed a lot of support. Anyway, so I went there and I was fortunate enough to have all these resources that I knew how to use. And I had a teacher there that I was lucky enough to have trust me. My experience with that program was vastly different than regular old parent would have, because there was a trust level there. And that's what attracts me to what Janet does with education. Is you don't have to have a background in education to have that trust built automatically. That's what we do
Yeah.
at Home Ed 360. I was fortunate and I had that opportunity. So I had the flexibility to say, my son is not going to learn with that activity. I would rather teach it to him that way. And it was a wink, wink, go ahead and do it.
That's
And while I did that, I started learning resources, and my confidence and my awareness of this completely alternate culture of education grew.
I am so grateful also to Home Ed 360 and for Janet's visit because of that reason. Like I'm glad you got to experience that in another program, and then now that we're here in this program, that we can experience the trust between that the parent is, the main
Yeah.
educator, and us teachers are here for support for them, but the parents know their children best. They know their learning
Hmm.
style, and so being able to support and work together in that way is a beautiful thing, and that Janet has allowed us to do.
Yes.
So how did you get from that program to Idaho and to Home Ed 360?
Getting to Idaho was my husband, and it was via a 4-year experience in Minnesota, and then another 2-year experience in Virginia Beach, Virginia, which I love because I was back with my military background people experience, and it was welcoming and wonderful. And then my husband works with Albertsons. So with that, this is the motherland. So we ended up back here. I always knew I would be in Idaho at some point. It was a matter of when in his career we were placed here. So we are here and we are here to stay. How did I get to Home Ed 360? Not even through my own children. I had my child in a hybrid program that Isla would allow funds to be used for, but we weren't part of Isla. I was just doing private homeschooling in this state.
Mhm.
And the person who led the Garnet Prep program is a person who had a strong relationship with Janet in Janet's early years of homeschooling. So when there were events at the school, there were conferences that would be hosted there. Janet came by the school the first year she was thinking about beginning a high school program, and I had questions for her. And when it's education, somehow my polite filter doesn't always come out. So, I mean, I'm probably, I look back and I think, oh, I don't even want to know. I just know that I asked all the hard questions and
And
she
did
didn't,
Janet have obviously had some pretty good answers for you?
she did. And so I spent another year or two just kind of watching her to see if she was putting her money where her mouth was with practice. And I was so impressed. And I was already on faith. I was that person because I can't stop with education. If you're a friend of mine, then you better like hearing about education because I don't know how to live without it. But it would be one of those. I was automatically on Facebook and people, on all the homeschooling sites, and people would ask questions, and I would pipe in, and then I'd have sidebar private message conversations, and I just more and more was saying, have you looked at Isla? And I just decided, well, why? I might have, my son was ready. I mean, he was at the beginning of high school, but I was thinking, good grief, he doesn't need me anymore. He's independent. So what am I going to do with education? So I thought, well, I might as well make some money supporting people, answering questions. And, it's not teaching in the traditional sense, but it's doing what I love. Even as an educator in brick and mortar, I had hosted family math nights and literacy nights where I taught parents how to dual Conan blending of sounds, like all those areas. That's what our school did, was equip parents, involve parents, trust parents as a primary educator. And it was not a culture of we have all the information, don't do anything at home because you're going to mess it up for us as teachers. It was the flip where how can we get you involved, and like the more involvement the better. So this just worked. That's how I ended up
Yeah.
here. I came out of retirement um 100% because I would be having more opportunities to make an impact with what I loved doing, and that was supporting people through a home educating process. Knowing full well that most people, they make that, the first leap is always so hard. But then once they've done it, they're all good. And then about seventh grade, the no, have I done everything starts to pop up. And the fear that I don't know how to do it. Well, that's where I loved the role that I was allowed to have in this position. And that is saying you don't have to know it all. There are a la carte education options. I look at it, education's a menu. You can teach it yourself or you can
Find
contract
the
out.
resources, yeah,
Yep.
and the support.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Yeah.
the beautiful thing about Home Ed 360 is it whatever you want to do, Home Ed 360 supports that. Like you
Yeah.
can choose so many different ways and so many different resources, so many different, personal opinions and matters and Home Ed 360 works for that. Well, I am so glad you are also in Home Ed 360 because you've been a mentor and a huge help to me, and I've learned so much from you, and I'm excited that we get to learn that from you. It's kind of a good segue that to get into math and why math matters, and that's what we want to kind of address on this episode. I like that you mentioned when you were teaching in brick and mortar, you would have parent nights and actually be helping the
Mm-hmm.
parents and you're involving the parents in how to teach literacy and how to teach math. And so we want to hear some of those ideas and suggestions on what did you teach parents to teach math effectively as a parent, even though they're in brick and mortar school, what things can they do at home? So before we kind of get into specific things that they can do, what are some common concerns that people have when it comes to teaching math to their children?
I'll start with the one that is probably the most commonly accepted and the biggest bugaboo ever, and yet I have the most understanding and compassion for this concern, and that is in our culture, it is 100% acceptable for a person to not like math and say, I'm afraid of math. I'm not good at math. I'm not a math person. I'm not anything. And I really think we do our learners a disservice by perpetuating that mentality. It's a big one and it's embedded in our culture in ways we don't even think about on a daily basis, but it does impact how we look at that subject.
Yeah.
So I would say that is one. The next one would be, well, what order, what's appropriate for people to learn? In what order do they learn it? How do they learn it? And then in our homeschooling or home educating world, I should say, good grief, there are so many resources out there. How do you know what to pick? What do you look for? And then if it gets beyond your comfort level, what do you do? Where do you
Yeah.
go?
Like
So,
you said, yeah, when they
yeah.
hit seventh grade, that's why a lot of people have told me they're like, I don't think I could educate my kids at home because when it comes to math, I get to middle school math and like, I don't really know how to teach that or I don't remember those. And there are, like you're saying, there's a lot of resources and help out there to be able to fill those gaps. Like we don't need to say, I don't know, the math. And well, there are resources out there to help that, absolutely. So let's keep going on. I guess we could ask the question of why math matters. Do you want to speak to that even through all these common fears? Why do we still push through and teach math to our kids?
Oh, goodness. Math is universal. You can't get away from math. Everything in our world has to do with math. One of the things I used to tell my young first graders when I was teaching them is how would you define math? And, everybody say it's addition, it's subtraction, it's this, it's that, it's shapes, it's everything. And I would say, well, what do those all have in common? And if you look at math, and step back from the numbers. Math is simply a pattern of events or a lack of pattern of events. That's all it is. And those patterns are something that can be repeated and replicated, or that's the same thing, but they're constant. They're not changing. You can rely on them. It's not open for interpretation. It is. And so,
That's so simple. That's so easy to, because yeah, sometimes we think of math as like this very complicated, overwhelming algorithms but if we just think of it simply as a pattern that we can see in our real day-to-day life, that's so simple. I really
mhm.
love that. So how do we help, what kind of things do we do to help our kids see that it's simple and not give themselves that label of I'm not a math person. I don't do well with math. How do we, push past that and help them
Well,
see
I think it starts in the home, and I think it starts with examining self-examination. Um, and I get it. I I'll just share a little story from my background. My dad has a minor in math, and he was an electrical engineer by school degrees. That's not where he ended up, but that was his background. So very mathy and science in my home. And my mom is a very analytical person. So I would put her in that math mind kind of thing. You probably figured it out by now, but I'm very language heavy. Now I had a quick memory. So for me, my experience, I didn't require a whole lot of math support. I didn't have any feelings about it. It was just easy. It was like, aha, I get to show off. It was memorization. And that was something I did well. And that worked really well until about fifth grade. And fifth grade on, I had an unfortunate situation. There was an earthquake in the middle of state testing, and it was that state testing determined where you were placed in math when you transitioned to the middle school. So, because I had more than 75% completed, they said, good enough, and didn't have me take it. And I was put into the remedial math class working
Wow.
on basic multiplication and division facts
Wow.
as a sixth grader. And of course, you're new. You know how it is. If you go into a mom goes into the school and they kind of roll their eyes and pat the mom's head and say, sure, she's really bright. And, we'll give her a chance. If she can pass however many perfectly, we'll talk again. Well, I have ADHD. So impulsivity combined with middle school brain and socialization goals, I had missed one every single time, which to me is ridiculous. In looking back, you've got to be kidding me. I was above a 90% and you couldn't. So I had that experience. Well, by the time my mom had convinced them that I was inappropriately placed in a math class, and they put me in the appropriate place. There had been a lot of negative back and forth school parent. So I landed in that room, and I'll just say that the teacher was less than welcoming, sat in the back of the classroom. They were working on pre-algebra concepts, and she offered zero support to help me catch up. Well, that's something that if you're not there for the concepts, you're lost because you're not dealing with numbers and memorization anymore. You're dealing with application. So I moved out of that class and they put me in with the seventh and eighth graders in kind of the middle track at that time. And you would think, okay, so you probably did well. Well, like I said, I don't do things when I'm not passionate. If I'm bored, I don't put anything into it. I put my energy into disrupting the classroom with fake earthquakes, getting that going in the room when, yeah, I became that person.
Well, and I've seen
So,
that so many times in my classroom. When the kids are they know these things, right? Like they can, but when they're not engaged at their level and in
no,
their
no.
interests, like yeah, they that's what happens. Yeah.
Yeah. I was doing short division, the little short versions in third grade, and they were having me in sixth grade solve every step along division. I'm thinking, why? I mean, I actually had a good concept of the place value that was happening and how I could represent it, but nope, wouldn't count it. So
I do have
take
to really
that.
quick, I do have to give a shout out to your mom for advocating for you. That's
Oh,
awesome
my mom was,
that she
I
advocated.
thank you. I agree, and I appreciate that. And maybe she'll have to listen to this because I probably don't say it enough. My mom was very ambitious with us, but she was also she brought us up to be very respectful, but not complacent or compliant. And that was a huge gift. And she demonstrated it by asking questions, and she taught us to ask questions. Um, that's a learning curve. I mean, doesn't mean I always ask my questions respectfully, nor do I now, but
But you ask
but
questions,
that
yeah,
was,
like that's the
yes, I
most
do. I
important
don't just
part.
accept. So my mom did a great job with that. And thank you for commenting about that. But then you fast forward. So I'm now stuck in that middle track. And then I go to high school and I've got a geometry teacher who, rumor had it, had vodka in his coffee cup.
Oh
I
no.
mean, who knows? It was not conducive to learning. We'll
Yeah.
just say that. That I can say.
Yeah.
Um, Placed in geometry and found myself with a D, and math confidence had plummeted by then for sure. So I found myself with a D, and here's my dad at home with a, you've got to be kidding me. So he, week before a final when they figured it out, sat down and I memorized all the postulates and theorems and went in and got an A on the test. And then it was what's going to be next. My dad was going to coach me, and I ended up with an A- in the course. I pulled it together the last quarter. But then I went into the next class and I have perceptual vision issues. So overheads aren't a good thing. My boyfriend was in the class and and I'm old school in that we didn't have calculators for algebra at that time. When you were solving algebraic equations, you were writing out everything. With my vision, lining columns up, not something I could do. And then distraction. And then he was the kind of instructor who was probably one step ahead of us. He had one way to teach it, and he'd get halfway through proving something and say, "Oh, forget it, erase everything you've done" on the overhead.
No.
So I dropped out of math my sophomore year of high school.
Wow. And in
And
the moment, you probably like in hindsight, you can recognize all these things.
oh,
It's
yeah.
amazing to hear it in this story, but like when you're actually going through it, you don't know, all of these things are just happening and
And
it
he
doesn't make sense.
actually articulated to my father, who went in, just livid, that I would never graduate from high school and I would never make it to college. So I will circle back to that because my biggest victory went with that California Math Fellowship.
Yeah, that's a huge accomplishment after that
Yeah.
experience in high
Yeah.
school. And now here you are on the podcast talking about math and how to overcome all of these math challenges because you experienced them.
And I'll be honest, I have math anxiety still. I have to talk to myself when I see a complex whatever problem. I have to actually pause and have a self-talk saying, you can do this. You don't approach math the way everyone else does, but your approach to math is a valid one. And if it doesn't work, you've got 24 others that you can pull out of your bag.
And
Yeah.
you say it like everyone else does, but I think it's more common than not that people don't approach math the common way. And when we actually realize that and see how our kids are approaching math and how we are approaching
Mm-hmm.
math, that's the empowering thing. Like, which
Mm-hmm.
you recognize that and you're now been empowered in yourself because you recognize that in yourself.
Mm-hmm. And I refused to pass that anxiety that I am a math person or I'm not a math person culture on to any student that I taught, which is why I took the very scary big step and put myself in a summer math institute that was comprised of kindergarten through your calculus teachers. And I will tell you, that was high, high, high risk for me.
But you
But
still
I
did
did
it.
it because I
Yeah.
did not want to pass on that area of deficit to anyone that I taught. And so I learned a lot in that class, and I learned that I am a math person. I approach math differently than the people we consider mathy do.
We
Yeah,
all are all math people in our own way.
all designed, we naturally use math. You
Mhm.
find me a child that gets four M&Ms and the person next to him who has 10. And I'm going to tell you right here and now, they're applying math and recognizing that things aren't fair without
Right.
knowledge.
Children.
It's a natural phenomenon.
Yeah, like my young kids don't. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and just today my 4-year-old puts up two fingers and she said, "One finger and one finger. That's two fingers, Mom." She
Yep.
has no idea. She's probably never even heard the word math, but
No.
just making connections that are math, but she has no idea, what the bigger picture of math
Hmm.
is. So, can you speak to the parents now that have had this feeling of like, the questions of am I capable? What if I mess up? Can you speak to those parents to help them have some confidence that we're all math people and we can help our kids be math people?
I can. So I heard a couple things, and I might have to have you pull me and rein me back in. We are all math people. What confidence do you need? You need to know that you have resources out there. I can, if we have time, talk about what to look for with resources, but I'm going to do the easy fallback and say if you're part of Home Ed 360, you have a wonderful homeroom teacher that is there to support you. And if they don't have all of the answers, because who would? Um, there's a team of teachers that support each other with our professional learning communities, and the sharing of expertise benefits all families. So I would point to that
Mhm.
first and the resources that we provide. And then after that, I would say when you're looking at materials, don't look at it with fear and don't look at it with, oh gosh, how do I put it? Don't think you need all the answers. In fact, it's better for your child to have successful opportunities struggling with a concept while you're secretly in the background figuring it out. Those opportunities to struggle are powerful for developing math
Critical
thinking.
thinking.
Just like you don't hop in and correct a child learning how to apply sounds with letters. They might struggle through and bumble and say the wrong word. And I mean, you will coach them and correct them and bring them there. But in the learning process, they're developing all different kinds of ideas and what's working and what's not working. And their brain's actually filtering out effective strategies and ineffective strategies while they struggle with reading. And math is no different. And in fact, if you really wanted to boil it down to me, the conceptual development of math and numeracy, number sense, is a direct parallel to learning how to read. Can't read without one-to-one recognition. You can't count without one-to-one recognition. You can mimic it, but until you have that concept that a symbol represents something else, a letter represents a sound, or a number represents a quantity, then those are your earliest developmental stages, but they parallel all the way through. And if a parent is really wanting to see what that looks like in the development through the years of how kids go from one developmental awareness and ability to another, there is a series of videos that people can find on YouTube by Graham Fletcher,
Mhm.
and it's number sense progression, and he talks about how kids think about early number concepts and then what the next development is and on and on, and he gives a great visual to go along with it so that you can, there's so much education chat out there that
And
even
I'll
as a teacher, I think, what was that acronym for? He puts the visual there so you're not having to weed through all the educationalese while you're
Yeah,
listening.
I will in the show notes. I'll link that YouTube,
Okay,
those YouTube videos,
sounds
so
good.
people can find him and kind of if they're interested in that, they can look
Yeah.
there. Man,
And
there's so many things that we want to talk about,
I
and
know it.
it's like time goes so quickly.
This is
But we're
just an amuse-bouche
gonna
experience, a little appetizer for the whole
we're
concept
diving
of math.
deeper in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's jump down to real world applications. Um,
Yeah.
and talk about how like even in the beginning, like you were just saying, like the kids are doing the one-to-one,
hmm
matching without even knowing that they're doing math. What kind of
hmm
things can they do that are what kind of projects, what kind of activities can kids do from an early age to start applying these concepts to the real world?
So there's a variety of formal and informal activities. Informally, the more parents can recognize math application in the real world, give experiences here. Which one's heavier? Which one's lighter? Put it on the scale at the grocery store. Oh, goodness, that's too much. Can we cut it in half? What does half mean? That vocabulary is a big, huge component in math that we don't really talk about a lot, but the vocabulary gives some context for concepts. So that would be one thing that's easy. We can all do that as we're driving down the road. Oh, I saw a mile marker number 1. What do you think is going to come next? I mean, it's all around us. So the more you talk about it and normalize it, the less people view math
Intimidating maybe.
as a yeah, because it's just a tool. Um,
And then the
so
kids are immediately engaged because it's fun. They're seeing it all
right,
around them. They're
right.
like, they don't even need to know this is math
No,
and patterns going
right.
around us in the world.
Patterning's huge. So vocabulary is a big component. The next component that I would put equal emphasis on is developing big ideas about math, ideas of comparison. More than, less than, not in the math terms, just this is heavier than that is, this is larger than that is. So you're quantifying and describing the world around you. That's mathematical thinking right there. As we mature, we start assigning numbers and values to it. But in the earliest stages, it's just natural play. So develop those big ideas. I I have this one thing, but there are two of you. What do I need to do?
Yeah.
I mean, it's natural. I
hmm
mean, it's not a big deal. So
What about
developing big
having, oh,
ideas.
sorry.
Yeah,
The
I was
big
gonna say,
ideas. We were kind of mentioning that before the episode of
right.
if kids or ourselves know what the big idea is, what the vision is, it's so much easier to do that learning if they know where
hmm
the learning is going and what the big idea is.
And that brings me to the next part. Complemented with big idea development is also purposeful skill acquisition. The more you can encourage a reason to need a skill to do what you want to do in life, the more invested a child is going to be in learning it, and the more they're going to hang on to the concepts that you're teaching. And the more you integrate all subject areas, the richer and more authentic the learning experience will be, which makes it that much stronger and the connections last for kids. So, for example, I was talking with a parent about this the other day. They were wondering if they could take a break from their traditional program. And I said, you absolutely can. A, you're ahead of it. And B, this is a great time to pause and go with the world outside you. They're really interested in birds. And I said, well, then if you're watching the birds and you're reading about them, build a birdhouse. Let's make a whole thing. Build a birdhouse. To do that, and you can pull in as much or as little, depending on how high age-wise concept development. I mean, you can take it to Pythagorean theorems and that kind of stuff if you want, but really have them calculate the cost of the materials that are needed, the paint, the nails, this, how many you can count them, you can add them, you can do all of the money practice. How long do you anticipate this taking? Estimation's a huge skill, and it's a skill that we use probably more than any other one in the math world because we don't usually whip out a piece of paper and do calculations. We kind of ballpark amounts when we're grocery shopping, for example. Yeah, spent about $82 at this point. Um, so, developing estimation skills, you're measuring, you want to make sure this side, because you're introducing language, measures 4 inches. What would that look like in the metric system? We have to make a little hole for the birdhouse. If your child's older, younger, it's circles. Older, it's you get into the circumference and area and all of that goes with it. You do volume problems with it. But then take it from there, you can very easily morph. Okay, so we have a birdhouse now. Let's pick something we're going to track and collect data for. So you're going to turn this into an authentic science research project that relies on science needs kind of what they call a 3D approach. If it's really science, it's not just investigating, it's observing and using observations, tracking them with data, controlling variables. So, for example, you could say, all right, Johnny, you built your birdhouse. You notice that a robin's coming. Is there a certain time of day it comes? You can track that. Or you can say, let's track how long robins stay at the feeder each time. Or let's track how many birds, period, and is it changing over time? You're collecting data for a purpose, and that purpose is going to help you with a writing project, a scientific writing piece afterwards. So you're getting science in there, you're getting math in there, different kinds of math in there. They have to make a claim about you could track the temperature, and there's more rainy days now than snowy days, and I see more birds. You can start seeing relationships with the patterns. Back down to that, science relies on math, and math is just a pattern. So you're looking for and observing patterns, but applying math to it, the skills that you need in order to do it. So you use those math skills to do critical thinking. I think there are more birds arriving because we are entering a new season. And then you track it some more and see if your claim is backed by evidence based on data. So if you wanted to, you could get out the maps and track the route the birds take and get into your geography and read all about, you see where I'm going.
Yeah,
It's
I'm like so
application.
inspired right now. I'm gonna go and make a birdhouse with my kids. But there's so many lessons in that, so many
Oh,
lessons
yeah.
that they can learn from that, and so many cross-curricular learning
Mm-hmm.
involvement in that. But what I'm thinking while you're explaining this example is this child who is making the birdhouse, one, you're gonna be able to make a great connection and help them. And two, they're gonna remember this forever. Like they're
Mm-hmm.
never going to forget the time that they built the birdhouse and every single thing that they learned from building that
Mm-hmm.
birdhouse and learning these concepts. And so I love that you said take a break from, your curriculum because, being ahead or whatever, but being able to work on a project like this together in the family and learn all of those different math concepts is such a powerful learning experience for life.
And they
Thank you.
don't have to come at the end of learning as an enrichment. It is really powerful to start with a big question and let kids identify the skills that they will need to learn in order to answer or solve the problem, answer the question or solve the problem. And that way it's purpose-driven instruction. I'm going to need to know how to measure. Okay, then let's talk about how to measure. Now that I've taught you how to measure, you can practice it and then we'll go apply it with your build. So that inquiry leads and they might make mistakes. And then you'll say, gosh, I wonder why those corners didn't align. Where was the error? Let's back up, figure out what you did right and what needs to be improved. And that learning, that error analysis is going to carry kids farther with their understanding, and that's backed by cognitive science. But error analysis is a very valuable learning experience.
And that's why we recommend when you turn in the math that you as a parent have looked over it with the child and maybe found any of those errors that they have made and allow them that time to go back and learn from those errors, because like you
Right.
said, science backed, that is such deep level learning to be able to fix those errors and learn
Mm-hmm.
from what they did and then be able to do it the next time because they went back through the problem and they were able to correct it.
Mm-hmm. And
Um,
explain it to another person,
yeah.
because that will take it to yet just one more level of, yeah,
Yeah.
solidifying the concept.
One question that I'm thinking of that I'm thinking parents might have in this conversation is, so when the kids do get to 7th grade and it feels like maybe you can't do as much of the teaching anymore, what do you do then? What resources do you reach out to, or what do you start doing when you feel like maybe you need more help than you can teach to your child?
I would say one, if you're in a program like this, you have many lessons to guide kids. You have teachers there to support them. If you're a person who has dollars available, credits available to purchase resources, those resources could hire somebody that knows what they're doing, or you can join a hybrid program. There's tons of online programs that you could participate in, but there's also a lot that's available. Gosh, how do I put it? There's a lot of project-based learning activities that will ask the question that you might not even be aware, okay, that's going to get really involved with the math, but it'll ask the question, and then your child typically at that age, and if not, it's a good goal. Finding where to find answers is a big skill. Content, and I say this from experience with my own, it did get to a point that once we hit a certain level in middle school, about 7th grade, it was more important for me as a parent to coach organization, communication,
Mhm.
advocacy, completion, like all those, what it would take you to be successful in whatever you did in the secondary world. That was more important than content, because at that age, they can find content by grabbing their phone. And the more we have AI available, the more prevalent that's going to be. What we can't teach at the very end as an isolated thing is how to think critically, how to persevere, how to struggle, how to make connections, find relationships, and look for the information you need in order to get what you need to get.
Yeah.
So, that's my little soapbox, but I truly 100% think that's what makes or breaks kids more than the content. Yes, they need the skills, but when they get to a point, they know they can find the skills, and your role as a parent is to start promoting that progression. I don't know if I
You would say
answered your question or
middle
not.
school. No, I think, yeah, I think that that did answer it in a way of like when they get to the to middle school age and you start teaching them the skills of like if they know how to learn, if they know how to find what they want to learn, there you go. Like they're going to be able to learn anything at any time.
And I just realized I have one more caveat with that goes in with those math progressions. And I don't know that Graham Fletcher goes this far, but one thing parents might want to be aware of as they hit those middle school years. And I watched it with my own, and it was painful. And I'm even knowing what I know. Your brain, and you know it because you watched your kids learn to walk and talk and all of that. There are developmental stages that your brain goes through. One of them is kind of that final one that hits people at different time periods. In fact, well, I'll get into that too, but math, you might have a super advanced math student. I had one. He
Mhm.
was pre-algebra in 4th grade.
Wow.
We tried moving to algebra, shut down. Okay, fine. No rush. No rush. We went sideways. We did a different algebra program. Tried the next year, not ready. Tried the next year, not ready. He was an asynchronous learner. Some areas were developing while the other ones kind of lagged, and it was just very irregular. I put math on the back burner, for lack of a better way to describe it, where it wasn't our primary focus.
Hmm.
His language development was more important, and his expressive abilities were more important at that age. And then magically one day it was, yep, I'm ready. algebra, no problem. Went from algebra to, because I got to the point where I thought, is he ever going to be ready? Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I
Mhm.
can't have this happen. And I turned him over to the community college and had him, I thought, if they're doing remedial math, and he wasn't, I mean, he was not that age, but the people that know how to teach those courses are going to know how to reach people when things don't make sense. And so he walked in and did two math 90s when he was first year of high school, I think. And, flew. It
Mm.
just flew. So be aware that that algebraic thinking ability is developmental, and it's kind of like learning to walk, where you can present the opportunities, you can push the idea that that concept's out there, but if they're not getting it, it's okay to relax and come back and
Mhm.
relax and come back. You can't force that. And with girls, that comes later.
Yeah. I appreciate that caveat because I think that it's with math, but I think it's with life
Yeah.
in general, with parenting
Yes.
and a lot of different subjects and things. So thank you for adding that in there. Um, so before we get close to wrapping up here, I what encouragement do you have for home educators to keep going when things get hard, when they feel that self-doubt, when they feel that burnout, when they just feel like they don't know if they can keep going? What encouragement do you have for them to keep going?
It's okay if you take a break. It's okay if you're not sure. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. If you think that's not happening in a brick and mortar classroom with any teacher on any given day, I'm going to tell you that's not true. And I'm going to tell you that I don't care how caring any teacher is, and man, I was passionate with mine. It's still different when it's your own child. You are uniquely invested. There's a unique trust built that means you're going to get the worst of the worst because they trust you. So you're doing the right thing. You might feel like you're in over your head, but you can do it. You just need to pause, breathe, reflect, and realize that you are providing a more personalized experience than they will get anywhere else in the world. And your child is going to risk more with their learning because they're with a trusted person. Pressure there, learning is pressure. So there's good pressure and bad pressure. If you want the pressure to be partially shared with an environment that isn't family, I mean, it might be a trusted person. They may love their teacher. It's not the same. It's not the same. So you are doing the right thing. And if you feel overwhelmed, reach out, find somebody to talk to, get ideas from other people. You are not alone as an educator. And it might feel like it for a moment, but it's not. There is no race to the finish line, period. All kids are capable of learning. They might be on a different timeline. What's the rush? Now, I'm on the other end where I'm thinking, there is a rush. Get out of my house. I would like to be an adult by myself now. But I'm
Yeah.
kidding. But that would be kind of the biggest. And with that, you are a math person
Mhm. Yeah, we
because
all are.
everybody is.
Yeah, that's wonderfully, wonderfully said from somebody who has experienced it. And you have your kids, your boys that um that are kind of just on their journey using all of the skills
Living
that
at
you
home.
living at home, but they're using all the skills that you've gone over with them for so many years. So um, Lisa, you are so fun to talk to. I feel like we could just keep going and keep going because you say it very well, you articulate very well, and you just have so much knowledge and experience, and you have so much inspiring and hopeful advice to keep going when it's hard and to know that we are all math people so that when it gets hard with math and we feel like maybe we can't keep teaching our kids because we don't know, we aren't advanced in math, we can keep going and teach them the critical thinking skills and allow other resources and other helps to help us as well. So You're amazing, Lisa. It's been so much fun to talk to you, and we'll definitely have you on again so we can dive deeper down into some more math concepts. But it's fun to get to know you and to learn from you. So I really appreciate you taking the time to share your wisdom with us. I hope that everyone has really enjoyed listening to this conversation and enjoy listening to Lisa. I will, if Lisa's okay with it, I'll add her email and her number in the show notes. So if you have further questions for her, you can reach out to Lisa. Also, if you have questions or topics that you want to see discussed on this podcast in future episodes, I will also have my email, and you can reach out with questions and topics that you would like to. So thanks again, Lisa, for being on with us, and we look forward to having you again on the podcast. And we'll see you guys next time on the next podcast. Until then, thank you so much for listening.